Welcome back to another edition of Talk Nerdy to Me, coming to you from the Zia Comics broadcasting lair in beautiful downtown Las Cruces, New Mexico. I am your host, Troy Stegner. Before we get into this comic book review, actually one favor, please subscribe, man. It helps us out a lot. Pandering over, I have right here, looky, comic bookie. It's a Suicide Squad book, and with the movie coming out, it's kind of good timing. But it's Suicide Squad, subtitle Get Joker. Yeah. So it starts off with Jason Todd. Jason Todd's in prison. This is back in time, right after. This is spoilers. Just happened years and years ago. The Joker actually killed Jason Todd when he was still Robin. And he was brought back through the Lazarus Pit. Thank you, Ra's al Ghul. And he came back and had a big chip on his shoulder, and he kind of strayed from Batman's teachings, and he is not afraid to kill people. Yeah, he will just, not like Batman, who doesn't believe in killing them. He will straight up take you out. So, set that groundwork. When Jason Todd knows that he was killed by the Joker and he was brought back mysteriously. So that's where you have your setting. In fact, they even show, iconic scene with Joker standing over with a crowbar, because that's what he used to kill him. And it flashes back, that's how he became Red Hood. And now he's in prison. Okay, and of course in prison, they kind of knew he was Red Hood. Everybody's got to see, try everybody out. He would, for the most part, he just would beat the people up that messed with him in prison until the guards came. I guess too many guards got hurt, and so they transferred him out of that prison to not Arkham, but what other prison is famous in DC Comics? Belle Reve. If you're a Suicide Squad fan, that's typically where they pull a lot of their people. And if you're not familiar with Suicide Squad, if you haven't seen the movie or read any of the books, there is Task Force X, which is Suicide Squad, and that's a very apt name for it, because these guys who are in, they're usually your meta-powered people, or people like Jason Todd who are just so good at what they do. They give them missions to go on, where every successful mission takes time off of their sentence, so they can actually get out sooner if they do enough successful missions for them. Well, in the movie, they implant a chip, and in most of the books, they implant a chip into the guys they send out on Suicide Squad. So if they start to go astray or try to escape, or just something they shouldn't be doing, the person who runs Suicide Squad, which is Amanda Waller, she even says in this book, she has only one person above her, period. So I'm guessing probably president, or some clandestine person, maybe Secretary of Defense, who knows. But she doesn't really answer to anybody except one person, and they're tasked with doing these missions that if you fail, it was villains, so they can write it off on that. Or she can, and here they've implanted these guys with something that will basically burn them up from the inside, and it destroys everything, even their DNA, so completely untraceable. If you blow somebody's head up, they're still DNA. This thing kind of incinerates them from the inside, destroys DNA, so there's nothing left that they can track back. So that is the one way that they keep them in line. So Amanda Waller comes in and talks to Jason Todd, Red Hood, saying basically, hey, I want to put you on our next mission for Suicide Squad. What happens, she explains it to him. We take time off your sentence for successful missions. And then he asks, well, what happens if we don't make it back for that? If we die on the mission? She said, well, then it was your last mission. So they introduce him to this doctor, the Larry guy, and he's going through and introducing him to all the people who are going to be on his team. You know, you had Firefly, you had Meow Meow, who is a new character to me. I'm not entirely sure about everything with her. You have another guy who was kind of, tested on by the military, giving him all kinds of strength and making him impervious. His name's Pebbles. You have Yonder Man, who's a teleporter. Plastique, who basically anything she touches, she can make explode. Anything. And you have Silver Banshee, which absorbs, sonic waves and things to power herself up. And of course, what's Suicide Squad without Miss Harleen Quinzel? And this is, her post-breakup with Joker. And she doesn't really care about Joker anymore. It was an abusive relationship, which is one of the reasons I'm not real fond of Joker. I never really liked that dynamic. But Harley still has her mental capacities a little bit, as she kind of psychoanalyzes Amanda Waller. But, it's Amanda Waller. She doesn't care. So they get them all suited up, give them the mission. Oh, and Mad Dog. I forgot about Mad Dog. He used to be one of my favorite, was he old DC or Vertigo? Just a vigilante dude, and it was really good. He wore the hockey mask, had the jersey on with the big red dog, and I used to like Mad Dog. I don't like this iteration so much. They made him to be one of the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. They kind of made him very, very, very anti-government. Never really cared for stuff like that. So I like the character Mad Dog. I don't like this version of him. Amanda explains to him, I've got this little box here that I pushed a button and it'll light up that thing in you and you'll incinerate from the inside. Nothing but ash. And the mission brief, they're out to go and get Joker. That was subtitle, Get Joker. So they get dropped by helicopter into Gotham, where he is supposedly they're supposed to meet their liaison, who is going to gear them up, get them ready to go in. And then is another, they're kind of freaking out. Hey, we're in a junkyard and there's no dog. And then a car comes barking at them, and a couple other little toys pop up, and immediately I realize they're talking to Toy Man, and of course it's Toy Man. So they go in, and he kind of tells them what's going on, gives them some weapons, and drives them over to where he's got one of his toys, of course, pulling surveillance for him, where Joker's at. So he's like, yeah, hey, Joker's supposedly in here. And they're all strategizing outside, and of course, your loose cannon there, Harley. Not only is she a loose cannon, but she has issues with Joker being her ex and how he treated her. She goes in and she puts a gun to his head and says, hey, gonna take you out. And all the other, his supposed henchmen in the bar, come to find out they're not really henchmen. These guys are professionals, and they're Russian. So now we know the Joker's working with the Russians. So the rest of Suicide Squad, when they figure out Harley went in without him, they're like, oh, come on, man. So they rush in to save her. Come to find out the dude she thought was Harley was just some dude who had his mouth sewed shut with a green wig on. So he's not even there. They fight their way out. And then you get to see Meow Meow's power. And she's kind of like a human Flurkin or something there, with the big jaw and the tongue's all coming out. And she just, right through this dude's head, takes him out. So that's Meow Meow's power, I guess. They escape, they get out, and they don't know what's going on. And Red Hood is pretty ticked because Amanda Waller didn't tell him that there were Russians involved. So he's calling her up to give her the brief and kind of tell her how ticked he is. While he's on the phone with her, she gets a knock at the door, and it's she finds out It's from a pizza delivery from a place who basically went out of business years ago. Kick down the door, and if you notice, that's very reminiscent of Clockwork Orange, and they even kind of reference it a little bit. You know, with the all white stuff, they all come in, and he kind of mentions it with when he talks about the ultra violence. So they come in, him and a couple of his dudes. They beat the snot out of Amanda Waller, and by doing that, Joker now has the box with that he can incinerate any of those dudes. All he has to do is push the button. So Jason Todd walks back and he tells them, and you know, they're like, "Oh, what happened? Did she chew you out?" Because he had this long look on his face. He's like, "No, you don't understand. Joker now has the box." And as soon as he says that, you see Firefly start from inside his suit. You see him starting to glow with flames coming out, and Joker must have pushed his button because he incinerated him. You know, just I guess to show them that he has the power and he's willing to use it. And the last panel you see is them staring over the top of Firefly's ashen corpse. It's not even a corpse, I guess, it's just a pile of ashes. And of course, you know, and Mad Dog's over to the side. It's a weird fuck. So, yeah, it's like I said, I'm not a big Joker fan. This is DC Black Label, though. They do a lot more of the adult type stuff, which leads me to believe they're not going to be afraid to kill people. We might see a few of these villains die. It could actually happen. Don't know how it's going to go for them. Now that he has the button, he can burn them all up if he wants. So why hasn't he? Is he going to use them to do something for him, or we don't know. We don't know. This I like the DC Black Label stuff, and I can't wait to see where they're going with this. The Suicide Squad has typically been one of my favorite DC comics, going way back to the 80s when I was collecting and reading heavily as a teen. I just aged myself, I know. I'm going to say this one you might want, just the fact that it's Black Label and it's Suicide Squad. I would subscribe to this. I really like it. I want to see what they do with the second one. You don't see Amanda Waller get bested very often. She usually has all the bases covered. I mean, she is a planner, much in the same vein as Batman is. I mean, those two have gone head to head, basically, with their plans, and she's held him pretty much at bay, because Batman does not like Task Force X. But Task Force X is still there, so she's done a pretty good job of holding it together against everybody. And you gotta say, Batman is probably one of the best planners in DC Comics. So yeah, Suicide Squad, get Joker, DC Comics Black Label. Subscribe. I don't think you're going to be upset. That is my review of Suicide Squad, Get Joker, #1. If you like that review and you'd like to see more like it, subscribe, man. Hit that subscribe button. Don't cost you nothing. It is free, and it helps us so much. And while you're at it, hit the bell icon. You'll be notified whenever we put up a new video. And until you see that new video, later, nerds.
Get nerdy with me. Tell me what game that you get on. Is it card or read? What kind of class do you play, girl? In an RPG.